Welcome, everyone, to the 30-minute Midas touch from beautiful Dyersburg, Tennessee at the Herb Welsh WrestlePlex. Now, here is, pound for pound and inch for inch, the best of the best in professional wrestling today. A wrestling genius worth his weight in gold. The Golden Boy, Greg Anthony.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 30-minute Midas touch. I am your host, the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony. And with me, as always, is my co-host, the Majestic Monarch, Mark Tipton.
Majestic Monarch. Monarch was not enough. We went with Majestic Monarch. Alliteration is...
I used two different ones.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Alliteration is always a good thing, and I appreciate it as always. And the monikers are fun each and every week, and I look forward to them, to seeing what you're going to come up with this week. And this week, I do understand the meaning of this nickname. It does fit right into the subject of this week's edition of the 30-minute Midas Touch podcast, because we're going to discuss, kind of in its totality, the King of the Ring tournament. It's going on right now in the WWE. The finals are, I believe it's this Thursday. It's a unique day that it's going to end at the Saudi Arabia show. The Crown Jewel, I believe, is what it's called this time, on Thursday at noon local time, I believe. And they're going to have the finals of the King of the Ring tournament at that event. And so it seemed appropriate to kind of discuss it. It is a tournament that has a long history within the WWE, I would say. Some highs and some lows. And so we want to discuss the King of the Ring.
One of the things that I've always said that WWE does well is they create a vocabulary. You know, there's certain things that you say that are inevitably WWE, Attitude Era, Genetic Jackhammer. You know what I mean? And the King of the Ring, to me, is one of those, because the phrase King of the Ring has been around forever, right?
Certainly.
And, there was even a boxing video game when I was growing up called King of the Ring, things like that. So it's been around forever. But WWE has been able to take it and brand it as their own. And now when people hear King of the Ring, I would venture to say if they've seen any wrestling whatsoever in the last 30, 40 years, they know what King of the Ring is in the WWE.
Yeah, I guess the first thing, we'll just kind of deal with it broadly. One of the things that I had realized is, in recent years, there have been years where the King of the Ring does not occur. And in preparing for this, I looked back and realized that the King of the Ring, and I had to double check this, started in 1985, which I don't guess I knew right off how far back it actually went. I'd always known it to be around, and for some time, and there was a stretch where it was an annual event that you look forward to. That's kind of faded away over the years, but it is in total, it is a significant thing in WWE history.
Yeah, and WWE, like another thing that WWE does well, I know we don't talk about what WWE does well a lot, but...
Right, and to be fair.
Yeah, to be fair. But, what they do well, too, is, like I said, they created these annual things that we all look forward to, and they're all uniquely different. The Rumble's completely different than WrestleMania. WrestleMania is completely different than King of the Ring. King of the Ring is completely different than the Survivor Series, that kind of thing, right? So they focus some of these events on a battle royal or a one-night tournament, or this is the culmination of whatever, or the big 5-on-5 matches, with the teams and stuff like that. So it's always a different thing, and you kind of know where you're going. It's familiar to you because we've seen it for so many years. What you're talking about starting in '85 was. It started in '85, but it didn't really become a gimmick until I think Harley Race did it, right?
I believe that's right.
Duggan had it. But Duggan was...
I want to say he won it from Harley, and it wasn't at the tournament.
I think it was the other way around. I think Harley beat Duggan.
Okay.
And then that's when he claimed it. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm stretching my memory on this one.
Right.
This is 30 plus years ago now.
Right.
But yes, it is significant.
Yeah.
Is the long and short of it. And when I look down the list of some of the names, like you just mentioned, Harley Race, who is primarily known, I would say, for his NWA career and the championships he won. That's certainly fair to say. Although he did have a successful run with Bobby Heenan as his manager in the WWE, as the King Harley Race, um, and it's fair to mention that.
Yeah, Harley obviously is one of my favorites, and someone obviously that I look up to as far as professional wrestling goes. And we've talked about it before too. Him being the king. Well, this whole situation basically, I think, was kind of a shot at Jerry Lawler too, because the king,
Right when it started.
yeah, the king of wrestling down in Memphis, Tennessee. Well, if you're the king, then what's Harley Race, right? So let's make Harley Race the king, because like I said, he was the first one to actually do the gimmick, right? Like Duggan came out with the stuff, but he wasn't King Duggan, I don't think, or anything of that scenario.
Yeah, I'm struggling to remember exactly how it came about, but
Right.
it was I vaguely remember Duggan being resenting the idea of anyone referring to himself as a king.
Right.
Because
make
hey,
sense.
he's the true American,
Yeah,
and he doesn't
every
like
day.
monarchy in general. He wants to rebel against the king, and someone calling themselves that.
Does he like majestic monarchy?
Well, I do not know.
We have to ask him that. Jim Duggan is a former Legends and Lions Tag Team Champion
Yes, that
with
is-
yours truly.
This is true. As in addition to holding the King of the Ring, so tremendous career for Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and I'm just thinking back. I thought Harley Race, in all honesty, I would think he kind of lended credibility to what And Ed, you brought up that it may have started as kind of a dig at Jerry Lawler, and we have to be fair that digs at other promotions is something that WWE's done on several occasions, and some promotions have done back, and so that's certainly not unrealistic to expect it to happen. But then when you have someone like Harley Race hold it, then it does lend a little bit of credibility to the title, as opposed to something you might just throw away as a joke.
Right.
And the fact that it's still around after all these years, it still has a level of credibility. Although, in fairness, I do not think it's quite what it once was.
Yeah, this was the sunset of Harley's career. A fabulous career, and I think WWE was. They were so adamant about not putting over NWA World's Champions, in that thing. So they wanted to respect Harley, and they wanted to, obviously, like you said, he lends credibility not only to the gimmick but to the company, right? But they didn't want to put over the title itself. So this was a way that they're out of it. I mean, if he's the king, there's no reason to put over past accomplishments. You understand? Like here and now, he's the king of wrestling.
Sure. And from their point of view, they say he's the king of the ring in WWE, which they're going to say is the pinnacle of the sport. Therefore, you're the king here. Therefore, everything else pales in comparison, in their point of view, so to speak.
Right.
I suppose one thing we could do is I didn't know if you had any particular past kings you want to talk about, but since we started with Harley Race, there are a number of people, and some of whom I actually forgot won the tournament at one time or another, who held the title of King of the Ring and did it very well. Were there any particular you wanted to talk about?
Well, I mean, and that's what we're talking about. Like WWE hasn't done a lot of this over the last 10, 15 years, but like the King of the Ring thing was a big deal for it. It was that intercontinental title ish kind of thing where if whoever won it, you knew was on their way up. You know what I mean? And like we had a lot of situations like that. Obviously, Owen being the first one that comes to mind, just because Brett had won it twice, I think, before him, and then Owen won it, and he proclaimed himself the King of Hearts. You know what I mean? It started like a whole new phase of his gimmick. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and it clearly delineated himself from Brett. Obviously, for much of his early career, he's Brett's brother, and so he was wanted to set himself apart. And standing up there as the King of the Ring, and this was when they had a coronation and all that, something that they did get away from, I should say, at one point. But he proclaimed himself that this point forward, I want to be known as the King of Hearts. I guess very quickly, one I wanted to get in. One of the earlier champions that I wanted to talk about, someone, I guess what I was trying to get at is someone who took the title and wore it well, so to speak. And the one that came to my mind first was the Macho King, Randy Savage.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Macho, and like I said, that was another rejuvenation to his career. It was a completely something different. You know, he's added something to his already established Macho Man. He was the Macho King. You know what I mean? And with Sherry as Queen Sherry, I mean that unbeatable, right? Like we've talked about how much we love Sherry Martel on this show before because legitimately one of the top 5 managers of all time and definitely the best valet of all time.
Oh, certainly.
I don't think there's too many people that could dispute that. She was just good at every level, and like she was always with main event guys. She upped the game of main event guys. You know, even guys like DiBiase and Savage who were established, she added something to their roles within the company.
Right, and Savage stood out to me because I thought it was such a change in his career, and because of let me say, the wrestlers who have longevity in their careers oftentimes have to go through changes in their presentation, and the Undertaker becomes the ultimate example of this because he's been portrayed he's made changes to his character, drastic changes, from the dead man to the guy riding the motorcycle to the ring, and
Right.
and everything in between. The Macho King, to me, it changed the way I perceived Randy Savage because there was the viewpoint of Randy Savage with Elizabeth,
Right.
and then there's Randy Savage with Queen Cherry.
Right.
Very different, and it really became a big part and as one of the successful parts of his career. We traditionally, the first time you say Randy Savage to me, I think about the WrestleMania 4,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. WrestleMania 3 and 4.
Yeah.
If I would be neglecting my duties if I don't.
Right.
When you talk about Randy Savage and you don't mention WrestleMania 3, your credibility gets questioned, and rightly so. But then he did this, and it was something I felt really extended his career and put a due spin on his character and his presentation to the audience. Do you agree or disagree? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and like I said, Randy Savage, you talk about longevity. I mean, they tried to put him out to pasture. After that, they tried to make him an announcer and everything after that, and he said, "No, I'm not having it." And he left and went to WCW, and he did some really, really good work in WCW. Some really good matches, elevated some guys, did some really cool stuff. If the structure to World Championship Wrestling would have been anywhere near as good, power structure I'm talking about, we'd still be talking about WCW today. But unfortunately, history has told us that's not possible. But I also want to put over the you mentioned Macho and Elizabeth
Yes.
versus Macho and Sherry.
Sherry.
Okay, so this is a subtle storytelling thing. Like with Elizabeth, he was a controlling figure in her life. Like he made her stand in the corner. He locked her in this room. You know what I'm saying?
All those things that we heard.
But they even played out on TV when he would, grab her by the face and
Yes.
like it was very, as a kid even you go, oh, he beats his wife. You know what I mean? It was very that kind of thing though, right? So then when he got with Sherry, and if someone beats their wives, they usually beat them all. They don't beat just one.
Right.
Right? But here he is with Sherry. He didn't ever lay a hand on her because if he did, they would like it.
Yeah.
Because she had enough heat to where that could have turned him babyface.
Right. And so you can't do that.
You can't do that. So they shied away from that part of it and did something completely different.
And it becomes a whole different portrayal.
Yeah.
I do want to try to move forward, and we've mentioned the name Bret Hart already. It is fair to mention Bret Hart is, to my knowledge, and I believe this is correct, the only individual to win the title more than once. And quite rightly so. We've praised Bret Hart in recent weeks as we've talked about it. And we do remember it was the King of the Ring where Jerry Lawler infamously, if I can get that one out, attacked him on the coronation podium after the tournament, which set up a long-term feud between the two. And so this tournament, both to his career and for the memory of a lot of people, has played an important role.
Yeah, like I said, this is always what I loved about it was used as a catalyst to either who's the next big thing, You know, or who's on their way up, and what matchups can we see out of this, you know, and they really did that very well for the most part. I mean, obviously there's stuff like Mabel.
Yeah,
Was that 95?
I was
I
probably
think.
going to just roll right over that, and that did not turn out well.
No, and it's just, and that's one of those hindsight 2020 things. You understand? Like you don't know when you come up with some of these ideas. You it's basically just a guess of how well it's going to work or what's going to happen. But they did this in Philadelphia. Philadelphia was a tremendously hardcore wrestling crowd,
Yes.
and they completely shit all over it.
Right.
And it came through on television miraculously.
Well, much the way they did the time Roman Reigns run the Royal Rumble,
Right.
and they sent Rock out to celebrate with him, and they were not having it anyway.
They're like, that's horseshit.
There's a thing that being aware. I hear the phrase "reading the room." When you're in Philadelphia, be aware you're in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They are who they are. Well, another instance of being negligent, if I don't bring this up, when we talk about King of the Ring, we have to talk about King of the Ring 1996.
Yeah, man, and that's why this is King of the Ring is so important to wrestling history. I mean, think about this. This started the biggest babyface run probably in history. You know what I mean? And completely changed the business. One promo, and that's so cool to think about as far as professional wrestling goes. Is that one thing like that, one creative thing like that, can change the entire direction of the business, and that's what Steve Austin did. Obviously, he had famously been working Jake the Snake Roberts in the final, won the King of the Ring. Jake the Snake Roberts before had cut a religious type promo on him, so
Right.
Michael Hayes had kind of told Steve, "Hey, he cut a religious promo, so be thinking of what you want to say." And he told, did he ever? And they're like, you thump your Bible, you talk about your Psalms, you thump your Bible, talk about your Psalms, you talk about your John 3:16. Well, Austin 3:16 says, "I just whipped your ass," and right there, the greatest T-shirt in wrestling history was born. Because, and then like I said, the next night on Raw, everyone had Austin 3:16. Yeah, it was crazy, and also, it not only did it change the business, but like it just transcended it. You know what I mean? And it all started with something at the King of the Ring.
Right. That is such a landmark. That talking about it, and even though the promo itself didn't necessarily have a lot to do with the tournament itself, other than that was the finals of the tournament and so forth, but it just lets and a historical tremendous event was associated with this, and it's and you mentioned it's the King of the Ring. At least it was an indication that, hey, here's the next big star. Here's someone who's rising up the ranks, so to speak. And I guess as a side note, I will slip in the famous talked about match between Mankind and The Undertaker, where Mankind, Mick Foley, took came off the top of that cage and all that. That did occur at the King of the Ring in Pittsburgh, I believe. Certainly not related to the tournament, but it is another historical thing that wrestling fans, they know that match, whether they remember it occurred at King of the Ring or not. It did, and
yeah, and that match completely overshadowed the tournament and the rest of the card. Even the main event was Austin and Kane.
Right, and how do you follow that?
Yeah, and no one even remembers that. I bet I'm one of the few. I'm
glad you remembered.
Yeah, me and 12 people remember the main event of King of the Ring '98 was not Undertaker and Mankind. But another thing we need to quote about the Austin win was that, and we've talked about this before, what could have been in professional wrestling, like the decisions that were made, that what could have happened. And one of the decisions made was Triple H was actually slated to win King of the Ring '96, but then the curtain call happened.
Right.
He got in trouble, so they took it away from him, and that's how Steve got it. So that's another interesting plot point.
And essentially, he was the one available to punish for the situation.
Yeah.
Hall and Nash were gone.
And
Shawn
then
Michaels
was
was
the
Shawn.
champion.
Yeah, he's Shawn Michaels. So you don't want to cut your nose off to spite your face, so to
Right.
speak. And so here's Triple H. He becomes the scapegoat, so to speak.
Yeah.
I guess on the notion of kind of indicating a new star, and one of them that comes to mind is that in 1999, Billy Gunn became the King of the Ring that year. And as a viewer, it had come across to me very clearly by all indications that they were behind Billy Gunn. And he was, moving his way to the main event status was what I felt, and I thought that the King of the Ring was a part of that. But it didn't really translate to him becoming a main eventer. Do you have any opinions on that? Do you think it was a shortcoming of his, perhaps, or maybe it's just the management issue?
Yeah, I think that was more of a booking issue than it was anything else. And I think you got to understand the WWE, especially at that time, was a landmine of personalities and politics and things of that nature. And I think someone actually had went to the office and kind of put a bug in their ear that well, maybe Billy Gunn isn't a main event guy. Maybe he's just this. You know what I mean? Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn is deceptively big. You understand? Like you know he's big, but until you meet him in person, you don't realize how big that dude is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Myself and Bobby Eaton, we had the opportunity to work the New Age Outlaws 2 nights in a row. Back in like 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. And he's just a very big dude. He's 6'4", 6'5", 270 pounds, and it's all proportional. You know what I mean? And like he's just a big guy. And I think one of those we talk about how Andre was, when he went to each town, during his thing, you got to see. Oh,
Right.
you got to see how big he was.
Right.
If people actually got to stand next to Billy Gunn, I think they would go, "Holy shit!" That guy's jacked. You know what I mean? But like on TV, it doesn't come across like that sometimes. Obviously, you see he's in shape, but you don't realize how big he is. I was kind of disappointed in his run just because I felt that it could be more. Like you said, like it didn't translate. But I really feel that was more of a booking issue than anything else.
Okay. Well, that was certainly my suspicion, although I'd never really known for sure. Because when you described the physique, you were talking about the prototypical WWE. If you ask the WWE what they want, they would give you something that looks a lot like Billy Gunn.
Yeah, I mean, blonde hair, blue eye, 6'4", 275. Can move, very athletic.
Absolutely.
Which a lot of people we always credit him with. Everyone steals how he does a leapfrog and how he takes the post, like on a splash, like when someone moves out of the way and he takes the top of the post, hits his head on the top of the post. Everyone in wrestling steals that because those are the 2 best ways to do those things. You know what I mean? And that's a testament to him too. Kind of like when we talk about Bobby Eaton, Bobby just did things that were better than everyone else. So I mean, a lot of people end up taking from him just because that's no one's ever seen it done better. So why not do it that way?
All right. And I mentioned occasionally there were people who surprised me when I saw the list because I had forgotten. One of those that stuck out to me when I looked at the list was Brock Lesnar. I had forgotten Brock Lesnar became the King of the Ring.
Yeah, and that's how he got his shot at SummerSlam against The Rock.
Okay.
They were doing the thing, they were kind of like the Rumble thing was, when you wanted the Rumble, you got the title match at Mania, right? But if you wanted King of the Ring, you got a title match at SummerSlam.
Okay.
And and that's how he ended up being WWE champion. And like I said, another prime example of someone's rise to the top. That's a prime example of it.
Okay. You've kind of brought up something that has been, as I thought about the King of the Ring and where it is. We mentioned that once upon a time it was its own pay-per-view versus where it is now, where it's essentially a Raw SmackDown thing with a match at a pay-per-view. And when I look at the kind of decline of prestige, in my opinion, of the King of the Ring tournament, you just pointed at something that came to my mind. It was that the winning the tournament had further implications. Now, you mentioned the Rumble. The Rumble is one of the most anticipated events of the year. It's essentially a battle royal. It's a little bit different in that they come in every 2 minutes. But at its heart, it's a battle royal, which we see any number of times. But that one became special. Why? But aside from the unique timing element, the winner we know is going to main event WrestleMania.
Hmm.
So it tells us something. That match, winning that match, has significance. And early on, and there were stages where the King of the Ring indicated someone was in line to move to a main event level. And now that seems to have gone away. And you mentioned, you win the King of the Ring, you get a title shot at SummerSlam. That's fine. That there you go. Now you've got interest and intrigue that leads to somewhere else. Whereas now, it's it's almost like it becomes something where the winner gets to walk around in a somewhat, sometimes in some cases, silly outfit.
Yeah, and okay, so let's get this out of the way right now. The worst King of the Ring of all time, in my opinion,
Okay.
is Baron Corbin.
Oh.
I do not like Baron Corbin at all, and I did not. He did not strike me as royalty. Obviously, someone like Booker T when he took it. Looking at Booker T on paper, you wouldn't go, "Oh, he couldn't be a king." Well, he took the ball and ran with that one, didn't he? And like it became one of the best runs of his career was
Right.
that King Booker run. Um, and it's just like Wade Barrett's another one that I was excited about.
Mhm.
Because here we have an English,
Well,
you know,
yeah,
king.
someone who could play into the.
Yeah, could play in the whole thing, and they didn't do much with it either. But
No.
and then Sheamus, and poor Sheamus, like he was trying to do the Celtic King kind of thing, and he ended up getting jobbed out by Triple H not soon after that he was King of the Ring, I believe. If that was and that was kind of the final nail in his coffin as
Right.
anything was going to come
that
of that.
era.
Yeah, and it's just like I said, I don't. To me, I love the fact when we have one battle royal a year, we have one night where it's 5-on-5 matches. We have one night where it's an all-night tournament. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
To me, that lends to the realism of professional wrestling. As far as, I mean, that's what people would do. They would brand themselves to where they had those special events every year. And if you look at Pro Wrestling Mid-South, we do the same thing. We have a big battle royal every year. We have Glory Less Forever, which is actually today, as we're taping, is going to be tonight. And that's our biggest event of the year. But then we also have like Ultra Brawl that would be like quote unquote our SummerSlam. It's all relative.
Right, and I guess that's. And really, Booker T. I do want to mention. I do want to give honorable mention to the King Booker. King Booker.
Baka.
Yes, as he over enunciated so brilliantly. I would compare his run to that of Randy Savage. There was Booker T and the way he was presented, and then when he became the King of the Ring and became King Booker, it was a stark change and really, in my opinion, elongated his career. It really gave a new chapter, took him a different direction. Kudos to him for that because he did a tremendous job with it. Uh, the and my aggravation with it, which is what I'm wanting to get back to, in really, I think this could be said about the Intercontinental Championship, the United States Championship. The King of the Ring goes right along with it. These are all things where earning this, achieving this, had implications, that led to something else. Once upon a time, the Intercontinental Champion was viewed as the number one contender for the WWF/E Championship, and now it is far from that. Winning it is like, well, it's like something we want to shelve someone off to the side and not have them involved in the main event picture.
So Vince McMahon created something really interesting as far as a wrestling promoter goes. He created these almost imaginary brass rings for people for guys to work harder just to accomplish these things that Vince McMahon had just made up. It didn't make
Right.
in most cases it didn't make a difference in their total money or anything like that.
No.
But it was something they could hang their hat on for their careers, right? Royal Rumble winners, King of the Rings, what's the other one I was going to say? The Money in the Bank ladder matches.
Oh, certainly.
Things of that nature. And then but like you said, over the last several years, 10, 15, he's kind of shot himself in the foot with that. Like they've diminished their own brass rings, so people, it doesn't ring true anymore. Well, who cares? Who gives a shit if Baron Corbin is the
Yeah.
king of the ring? It holds no weight.
It's not like he's going to, because he won this tournament, he's getting a title shot.
Right.
It's not anything like that. It just means he's going to come out and wear a crown and talk about how he's better than us or something.
It's not even that he's the best one to win it, to do the work with it. Like, he's not. I don't think he would have been the best king. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I mean that title could have went to so many different guys. I mean, even Drew Gulak.
Sure.
Can you imagine King Drew Gulak? That would be so entertaining. You know what I mean? Just him trying to act like he's a monarch and people throwing something, hitting him with tomatoes or something. It could have been anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, they have thrown tomatoes in recent days.
Right.
Most of my chagrin, but I guess that's what it is. And as I guess to sum up, as a member of audience, I've seen the King of the Ring rise to be its own pay-per-view with multiple matches culminating within one night, and something that was, I expected at a certain time of year, I could count on this.
Yep.
And now it's something that they go years without doing in some cases, and then they randomly bring it back, and it's clearly something they don't value highly. And as a member of the audience, when I see this, if they don't take it seriously and put importance on it, why should I?
Yeah. I mean, imagine if the NBA Finals weren't every year.
Right.
Well, they just played the entire season, then all of a sudden...
We'll do it again next year.
We'll do it again in 2024. You know what I mean? Like something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, when you do stuff like the King of the Ring stuff and the Royal Rumble stuff, you lend credibility to the sport and to your own company. We are over time, just barely.
Okay.
But I think this was a really good subject for us today. We do want to mention one more thing. Ken Shamrock was the King of the Ring.
Yes.
And I believe 1998.
Yes, that is true.
He was one of the few we didn't talk about. Don Morocco as well was
the very first.
The very first one. So just so we're giving people their just due.
And rightfully so.
Yeah. And William Regal.
Certainly.
Yeah. All great King of the Ring. Anyway, for myself, the Golden Boy Greg Anthony, and my co-host, the majestic monarch, Mark Tipton. Thank you and goodbye.